"Dad, your Parkinson's is tearing this family apart. Maybe it's time you lived somewhere that can actually handle you." My son said that to me over dinner. Not a stranger. Not some careless nurse at a hospital. My own son. And the worst part wasn't even the words. It was the fact that he couldn't look me in the eyes when he said them. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, sat beside him quietly sipping wine while my hands shook hard enough to rattle the spoon against the bowl. Parkinson's had been getting worse over the past 3 years. Some days my legs locked up. Some days I dropped things. Some days my voice sounded softer than I wanted it to. But until that dinner, I never realized my illness had become an inconvenience people discussed like unpaid bills. The dining room suddenly felt unfamiliar. I had bought that oak table 30 years earlier after landing my first major company contract. My late wife Martha picked the chandelier hanging above us. Family photos still covered the walls. Birthdays, graduations, Christmas mornings. I built that house. And somehow, I had become unwanted inside it. Vanessa sighed dramatically when I accidentally spilled a little soup near my plate. "The kids are nervous around him," she muttered. "This just isn't healthy anymore." Healthy. Funny word. People use words like healthy and safe when they want to hide cruelty behind concern. Daniel finally spoke again without lifting his head. "Maybe assisted living would be better." "Dad. Assisted living. A nursing home. An exit plan." I looked at my son carefully while my hands trembled in my lap. This was the same boy who used to follow me around construction sites wearing plastic work boots and calling himself future CEO. Now he looked embarrassed to sit across from me. I didn't yell. Didn't argue. When you get older, you learn that silence often reveals people faster than anger ever will. So I nodded once. Then I quietly packed my suitcase and walked out of the house in the middle of the rain. And that should have been the lowest moment of my life. But it wasn't. Because while I stood outside shaking in the cold trying to zip my jacket with Parkinson's hands, my daughter Emily pulled up beside the curb and said 4 words that changed everything. "Dad, come home with me." Emily lived in a tiny second-floor apartment above a hardware store in Columbus, Ohio. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, old radiator that hissed all night long. But somehow it felt warmer than the 6-bedroom house I had just left behind. She never looked embarrassed by my shaking hands. Never sighed when I moved slowly. Never treated me like a burden. That was the first thing that made me suspicious. The second thing came 2 days later. "You know Daniel's trying to sell the company, right?" Emily asked quietly over breakfast. I stared at her. "What company?" She blinked slowly. "Dad, Keller Industrial. My company. The company I spent nearly 40 years building from a rented garage with my best friend Arthur Keller." At first, I thought she was mistaken. Daniel already ran daily operations. I retired years ago after my diagnosis. I assumed my role in the company had faded naturally over time. Then Emily told me something that made my stomach turn cold. "He removed your name from internal documents weeks ago." That night, I opened an old leather briefcase I hadn't touched since Martha died. Inside were shareholder agreements, stock certificates, and original founding paperwork. And buried near the bottom, I found transfer documents. My name had already been typed neatly across the pages. Authorization for share reassignment. To Daniel Keller. The signature line was empty. But suddenly everything made sense. The pressure. The guilt. The care facility conversations. They weren't trying to help me retire peacefully. They were trying to remove me before I realized I still owned 38% of the company. 38%. Enough to stop a sale. Enough to block investors. Enough to ruin whatever plans Vanessa and Daniel had already started. That was the moment I understood something painful. Parkinson's wasn't the real problem. I was standing between them and money. The next morning, I called Arthur Keller. At 76 years old, Arthur still worked out of the company headquarters downtown. Same rough voice, same bad temper, same loyalty. After reviewing the documents, his expression darkened immediately. "They're drowning," he admitted. Turns out Daniel had taken massive expansion loans behind the board's back. Vanessa's brother had connected him to private investors promising fast growth and bigger profits. But the deals failed. Badly. Debt piled up. Investors got nervous. And Daniel panicked. Instead of asking for help, he decided to quietly take control of my shares and sell the company before everything collapsed. Arthur looked me dead in the eyes and asked the question nobody else had. "Did your son actually throw you out over this?" I nodded once. Arthur cursed under his breath. Then he told me there was a board meeting scheduled for Thursday morning where Daniel planned to finalize the acquisition. The strange thing is, I didn't feel angry anymore. Not completely. Mostly disappointed. Because deep down, I knew my son wasn't evil. Weak, yes. Greedy sometimes. Influenced too easily by the wrong people. But not evil. And somehow that hurt worse. Thursday morning arrived cold and rainy. By the time Emily drove me downtown, my Parkinson's symptoms were terrible. My right leg dragged slightly while walking. My hands shook so badly I couldn't button my own shirt without help. People stared when I entered the company lobby. Some employees looked shocked to see me. Others looked uncomfortable. Like I was a ghost returning to a building that already forgot me. Then I walked into the boardroom. Daniel's face lost all color immediately. Vanessa froze beside him. Good. For months, they assumed I would disappear quietly. They assumed illness made me weak. They assumed old age made me irrelevant. I sat down slowly at the conference table while rain hit the windows behind us. Then I asked one simple question. How much of this company have you already promised away without my approval? Nobody answered right away. Eventually the truth came out piece by piece. $43 million in debt. Risky investor agreements. Expansion projects failing faster than expected. And acquisition contracts already drafted under the assumption they controlled my shares. Daniel looked exhausted. Vanessa looked terrified. And suddenly the polished executives around the room didn't seem powerful anymore. Just desperate. Then I placed the unsigned transfer documents in the center of the table. Silence. You tried to trick a man with Parkinson's into signing away his company. I said calmly. Nobody interrupted me. My hands shake. I continued quietly. But my signature still matters. That sentence changed the entire room. Because for the first time, everyone there stopped seeing me as a sick old man. And remembered who built the company in the first place. Then came the final twist. Back in the early years, Arthur and I added a protective clause into the founding agreement. Any majority sale involving company assets still required my written approval. Daniel didn't know. Vanessa definitely didn't know. The acquisition stopped instantly. Vanessa finally snapped after that. "You're going to destroy everything over pride?" she demanded. I looked directly at her. "No," I said quietly. "You almost did." The meeting ended without celebration. No dramatic speeches. No revenge fantasy. Just truth. Daniel stayed behind after everyone left. And for the first time in years, he cried. Not loudly. Not theatrically. Just quietly at the conference table while rain slid down the windows behind him. I didn't know what else to do, he admitted. And honestly, I believed him. Fear ruins people long before greed does. Still, fear doesn't excuse betrayal. I told him something Martha once made me promise before she died. Don't let money turn this family cold. Somewhere along the way, he forgot that. Maybe we all did. 3 months later, the company still existed. Barely. Arthur stepped back into leadership temporarily while financial restructuring began. Luxury expenses disappeared. Expansion stopped. Investors backed away once easy profits vanished. Vanessa left shortly afterward. Apparently struggling families were less attractive once the expensive vacations disappeared too. Daniel remained at the company. But no longer as CEO. Now he works under supervision rebuilding the damage slowly. One decision at a time. One honest day at a time. As for me? I still live with Emily. My hands still shake. Some mornings are painful. Some nights I still miss Martha so badly it feels physical. But something changed after that board meeting. For years, I thought Parkinson's was the thing taking my dignity away. I was wrong. The real danger was believing that getting older made me less valuable. That needing help made me disposable. But life has a strange way of revealing people clearly once you become inconvenient. One child opened his door only while I was useful. The other opened hers the moment I needed her most. And in the end, that difference told me everything about love.